Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff After Hours Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, Bill Cannon. I'm a retired 27-year veteran of the NYPD. I retired out of Manhattan North Homicide Squad as a sergeant. I wasn't retarded. I retired. And we have an unbelievable show for you tonight. I know I always say that, but tonight I really mean it. And to my right, in the box immediately to my right, is straight out of Brooklyn, my co-host tonight, retired NYPD. What was it? 6-0? No, you went 6-8 squad, right?
No, 6-0 squad. I was in the 6-0 squad.
6-0 squad in the intelligence
Island,
division.
Baby. Last stop,
oh my
Coney
God!
Island.
Straight out of Brooklyn, Phil Grimaldi. How you doing, Phil?
Pretty good. Very excited about tonight. I know Joe will be joining us shortly, hopefully, and we got Tommy Dades, the man. I can't wait to get into him.
We got here right now.
You know, guys, below us in the box below us is retired first grade detective Tommy Dades, 6-0 squad, another one of Brooklyn's own, and a organized crime expert. In fact, when he retired from the NYPD, he worked for years for the Brooklyn DA's office, and he was able to put away the two gentlemen known as the Mafia cops, Louis Ippolito and Stephen Caracappa. And that investigation was nothing easy, but Tommy Dades stayed with it for years, and he was able to put these two individuals away. And we're supposed to have Joe Pastone tonight, a.k.a. Donnie Brasco, but he's fashionably late. Oh, here he is. I think he's showing up right now. He's the one.
There he is. Drum roll.
There he is.
There he is.
Joe, are you in the dark on purpose? You trying to still stay undercover or what?
No, not on purpose. Just dark out.
What's up, Joe?
Joey, how are you?
How you guys been?
Good, pal.
Very good.
Long time no see, no hear.
Pardon?
I said, long time no see, no hear.
Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it, Tommy?
Yes, it has, sir.
Oh, do you have a lighting technician's going to light you up a little bit better than that, Joe? Because we can't see you.
Hold on.
Boy, he's really undercover, huh?
Oh my God! And he's got sunglasses on. He must not be able to see anything. You know.
I can see.
You know what it is? I think the light is facing the other way.
You know who's watching you tonight, Joe? I spoke to today, who I speak to all the time, and of course they speak the world of you. Matty Chikorico and Frank Spiro.
Oh, good guys, aren't they?
Yeah, the best. The best.
Yeah.
So, Joe, now that you're in the light a little bit, I'm going to actually introduce you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Folks, with us tonight is retired FBI agent extraordinaire, best undercover in the history of the FBI, Joe Pistone, a.k.a. Donnie Brasco. And you know something, Joe? I have a little bone to pick with you because you sent me this book and you signed it Donnie Brasco. What, are you trying to be undercover with me? I wasn't supposed to know who you were? I'll show you. I'll show you right there. You see? It's signed Donnie Brasco. I'm like, did he forget who he was?
The shoe fits, wear it, you know. You know what's funny? When we did the promo yesterday, I called him Joe Pistone, but then I referred to him 2 times as Donnie Brasco. I says, geez, I hope he's not going to get mad at me. But he signed the book, so.
He signed the book, Donnie Brasco. I was a little confused. I thought I met him, you know. I met him with his friend Bob Starkman. I thought he was Joe Pistone. Anyway, guys, let's get down to business. You know, everyone wants to hear. Definitely. They want to hear about wise guy shit. You know, they want to hear about mob stuff. And we have 2 of the best, mob cops that I know of, And folks, for you out there that live in a bubble, don't know who Joe Pistone is. He went undercover for 6 years and infiltrated the Mafia. He was 1 month away from getting straightened out. And that's mob lingo for being made. They were about to make him a made guy. And the FBI got a little nervous. A lot of shit was going down, and they pulled him out for his own safety. You want to comment on that, Joe?
Yeah. Well, what happened is that I have been proposed for membership into the Bonanno family by Sonny Black Napolitano, who was my captain at the time. And there was a beef in the family about who was going to run the family. And at the time, the boss was in the can, Rusty Rastelli, and there were three capos that didn't go along with that. So they weren't Rastelli fans, and they wanted to take over the family, but Sonny Black's crew, and the guys that he had with him, and another guy was Joey Messina, was another top capo. They were actually the street bosses, because, like I said, the boss, Russ Rastelli, was in the can. So they called for a sit down, and when the other three guys showed up at the sit down, they whacked them. One guy was supposed to show up. He didn't show, and I got the contract to kill him. So, now it was a war now. It was a shooting war. It was the first time. And I guess the Bureau, didn't want to get involved in the shooting war. And I had a contract to kill a guy. And but we had so much going on. We were, we had a marriage going on with Santo Trafficani, the boss of Florida. So they wanted to pull the operation right then, and that was May 5th. And we had another sit down with Trafficani coming up. So I convinced him, hey, let's go till, until we get this other sit down with him. And, well, to make a long story short, I convinced him to let the operation go till it was August. And then they said, no, it's too dangerous now, because you're getting contracts to kill people, and we're starting to know who's going to get whacked, and we can't let people get whacked with our knowledge. So they closed the operation down. So I normally don't care when an operation ever got shut down. I mean, I wasn't the guy that always, wanted to continue any undercover operation. Hey, if it's time, it's time. But on that one, I said, hey, look, let me get made. Let's shut it down after I get made, because can you imagine the embarrassment when they find out that
That would have been amazing.
They inducted an undercover operation, but they said no. So we shut it down.
I mean, it's just outstanding that they even proposed you, Joe. I know you're a modest guy, but you're referred to in, like I did a little research. They call you the pioneer of undercover work. I mean, we can't say it enough. 6 years undercover, barely seeing your family, Joe. You pulled off one of the most fantastic undercover operations. And the fact that you were just proposed, think about it. Organized crime was going to make you, had the operation continued. That is just unbelievable.
Yeah, well, a lot of it has to do with how well you plan your operation, and I mean, you guys are coppers, it. How well you choose your undercover. Look, everybody can't work undercover. It's not any. So if you can, you can't. But it almost worked. I mean, it was successful. Look, we punctured all the families in the city, families, outside of New York. Got great intel on how the Mafia operates, and put a lot of people in jail. So I guess that's what it's all about.
Working around Knickerbocker Village a lot back then.
Yeah. A lot of the guys lived in Knickerbocker Village.
Lefty lived on Monroe Street in an apartment building, right?
Yeah. Him, Tony Mira.
Yeah, Tony Bailey.
Oh, Joe, you know what I wanted to ask you? Since the last time you were on, you've been on twice before, once by yourself and once with your buddy Bob Starkman. And I wanted to ask you, I read the whole book the last time, and I had read it once before, but years ago. But I just read it through in anticipation of you coming on again. And I wanted to say to you, every time you got in a fight, you knocked the guy out. Is that true? Or you were like a prize fighter or something? And one time you were with this other FBI agent. You see, I'm talking with a Brooklyn accent now, and I'm not from Brooklyn. One time you were with this FBI agent who was a tight end from Boston College, and you fought 3 wise guys, and you knocked all 3 of them out. I was like, is this bullshit, or is he really this tough of a guy?
Well, knocked out, knocked down,
You left out, Billy, that the agent that he was with was 6'4", and he was a football player or something.
That's right. He was, hey, New York City Cops and Kids Boxing, thank you so much for the $49.99. I guess that's for Tommy Days, but thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Patty Russo, no?
Patty Russo.
Tommy's actually the fighter.
Yeah.
No, because I was going to say, I think you had 5 fights over the course of the book, and every guy, like you were victorious. I was like, you never got your ass kicked?
When they say knocked out, you got the better of them. You won the fight. That's
okay. So you never got your ass kicked while you were waiting to get straightened out?
I got slapped around a few times. Yeah, sure.
Oh, really?
Okay.
But they were look, you can't put your hands on a wise guy.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew that's why you got slapped and didn't hit back.
I knew it too.
So, if a wise guy gave me a slap, your only retort is vocally, verbally, But if it wasn't a wise guy, then
didn't Al Pacino play lefty almost to the T?
Who's that? Pacino?
Didn't he play him almost to the T?
Except his dress,
Lefty dressed it better.
Yeah, lefty dressed it. Yeah. He was. He never wore a hat, But that's the movie business. You know that, Tommy.
Character development.
If you notice the progression during the course of the movie, how as the movie progressed, his dress got neater and nattier. But it's Hollywood.
I remember in those days, wise guys. I came from Gravesend Avenue, and I was growing up in the 60s and 70s. All the wise guys, when they came on Avenue at lunchtime, they would be around from lunchtime on. They always had fancy cars, always very clean, and they always wore dress clothes and dress shirts and the jewelry. And they would never be seen with sneakers or sweatpants or anything back in those days. I mean, I'm talking about made guys, high level guys. Yeah.
In fact, once. I think I may have told you guys before, but once when I got really accepted, and was able to hang out in the clubs and stuff, that's the first thing they told me is, they laid down the rules, and one of them was dress. How you dressed. You got to dress nice all the time. You got to dress neat.
Yeah, because Joe, when you were an FBI agent, you had that little porn star mustache, right?
No mustache.
I had a thick mustache, actually.
You had to get rid of that mustache, right?
Yeah, they told me to shave your mustache because we don't want any facial hair. So they got their own rules. You guys, you work them, it.
It's not like that today anymore. It's really they softened up a lot on all things like that, right, Tom? Wouldn't you say that?
I don't know that they. What do you think, Tommy? I don't think they softened up. I think
the caliber of guys they got today is nothing like the caliber of guy. You know what it is? It's everything. It's not just wise guys. And I think I said this on the last show. It's ball players. It's cab drivers. It's everybody. The generation is what softened up.
Yeah. They're just into the me generation, the I generation, and don't listen to authority. I bet you half of these guys they couldn't find Italy on a map.
Yeah.
Joe, I want to ask you a question that I asked you the last time, but I think it's so important for people that are listening. And we were all three of us, myself, Tommy, and Phil Grimaldi, we all have certain attributes that people can spot and say, oh, that guy's a cop. You know what I mean? The way we stand, the way we move. How did you get rid of your copisms so well that you could be undercover and they couldn't say, wait, this guy's law enforcement?
Well, I don't know. I think I think a lot of it had to do with growing up. I mean, you grow up in that environment. I mean, I grew up in that environment. As I know Tommy did too. You grow up around these guys. I grew up around wise guys. So I wasn't acquiring the going the other way. I wasn't acquiring street sense because I had it, Right. I mean, I grew up around these guys. I grew up going into social clubs in the neighborhood, as a kid,
There's a lot of parallels between law enforcement, cops, and wise guys. And I swear, Bill, what you said, that people would always peg me. They'd say, you're either a cop or a wise guy because of my Brooklynese, I guess. And Joe, with the mustache getting shaved off, that was in the mob. They made you shave your mustache. I had Tommy smiling because he knows the story I'm going to tell.
Yeah, but that's also because most cops had mustaches. So that's why before the beginning of organized crime, like with Lucky Luciano, they called them Old Mustache Pete's. They did have mustaches, but cops, mostly agents, had mustaches. So that's why they didn't want no mustaches on. That's where it really comes from.
Well, the mob made Joe get a shave off his mustache, and I had an inspector made me get 2 haircuts in 1 week. Tommy knows that story, and I don't even want to say his name because he was a prick. So there's parallels here, boys. There's parallels. You know
what? Funny story. God rest his soul. He was a decent guy. I mean, whatever anyone wants to think, he was a gentleman. He knew the rules. Wild Bill Catullo. So we got him sitting at my desk. Meatball pinch, and we're bullshitting back and forth. We're eating lunch. His lawyer's there, and the whole squad's there, and a couple of his guys got collared too. And it's and our captain at the time, and the CO of the 6A precinct was Petrolongo, and he walks upstairs. He just gets word he's in the police department. If you're going to get bumped up in grade or promoted to a captain, whatever. The way you say it is, I'm getting made tomorrow. So he was walking up the stairs while Billy's sitting there, and he says, I'm getting made tomorrow. And Billy started to laugh so hard. The whole squad started to laugh. I said, see, Bill, we get straightened out too.
That's a good story. That's a good
Petrolonga didn't know who was sitting there,
Oh, he didn't know it was there.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Folks, the book is Donnie Brasco, My Undercover Life in the Mafia by Joe Pistone. Sometimes he gets confused and he signs it Donnie Brasco, but that's Joe's book. It's a fantastic book. And this was the book that the movie was based on. But let me tell you something. The book is 10 times better than the movie. So much.
Great job, Joe. Great job.
So much of the movie, so much of the book is not in the movie. And the book is really fantastic. I loved when you started out, doing truck hijackings and stuff, because you had experience operating heavy equipment, and you were also in the Army, right?
No, there was a naval intelligence.
Naval intelligence, right?
I drove an 18-wheeler when I was in college, and when I was on the truck squad, whenever we would recover a load, you got to get it back to to our drop, so I was a designated driver, and but it helped a lot, being able to drive an 18-wheeler around the city, the
NYPD used to have a unit called the Safe Loft and Truck Squad,
right?
And that went out with Teddy Roosevelt, I think, but they did have a.
when I first started in New York, they still had that squad.
Was Teddy Roosevelt the commissioner then?
It was around in our time too, right, Tommy? It was around.
Yeah, it was. It
was around. It was around.
Just as we came on the job, but they got rid of it maybe in.
They called it something else. They wound up calling it something else.
Yeah,
they
I think
gave it
Chief
a different
Ali
name.
was on the Safe Lofton Truck squad.
What's that? Say it again.
I think Chief Ali was on that squad for a little while.
Yeah, Buddy Manane took it over at the end when it was Safe Lofton Truck, and then it went to Buddy Manane. May he rest in peace. Great guy. Then they called it something else. I forgot what they called it. And if there was a burglary with a safe and it was a certain amount taken, they would give it to Safe Lofton Truck and stuff like that. Art would go to them. Art heist and different things like that. And then obviously the trucks, truck hijackings would go to them. But then I think they got sucked into the Major K squad. That's what I think it was.
I think that's what it got incorporated.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right.
But back in the day, they were taking taking loads like crazy. I mean, we were losing like 4 or 5 loads a day, and I mean, they were high value loads, really getting whacked, and it was all all mafia controlled.
Well, Goodfellas tells you about JFK. They were robbing that place blind for years.
They owned that place, didn't they?
Yeah.
Joe, I think it also has to do with what cities are willing to put up with. You see in LA now, they're letting groups of kids go into stores and just fleece the shit out of these high-end stores, and nothing's being done about it. Back then, go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say that. I think that's a disgrace where the prosecutor puts an arbitrary value. Anything under $950, we're not going to prosecute. What about the poor store owner?
Yeah, no, 100%.
That's a total disgrace what's going on. They actually tell the security guards. I saw a video of it. A guy was filling up a bag, came in on a bicycle in like a Walgreens, filling up a bag. Security guard and the manager standing back. The guy drives out on the bike. The security guard tries to grab him. He hits the security guard and he takes off, and not even collared, nothing. He probably took thousands of dollars worth of shit, but just goes
I hear rumors, Joe, that the Justice Department is following local city, state cops, that they're going to start having to wear recording devices during interviews.
Yeah, that just came down from this administration. Yeah.
I mean, you bring somebody now into a squad room in a precinct. I mean, I haven't seen it. This is what I've been told. And you try to debrief somebody, whether you're trying to flip them or get information or whatever you're trying to do. And there's 3 cameras in there. So even if the guy's going to decide to do the right thing, who's gonna let you film him doing it? You know what I mean? Doesn't even make sense.
Tommy, you know what else is different? Now, when someone is under arrest and you bring him in the interrogation room, you have to read the Miranda immediately. You can't schmooze them. Remember how you used to be able to schmooze them?
Sandwich and start talking to them.
Yeah, get them to and soften them up.
Throw that piece of paper in front of him. He's like, "Yeah, I'll sign it."
Yeah,
I understand that they're gonna start wearing cameras on raids and search warrants too.
I'm sure. Tommy, you brought up the squad room. I was in the 60 squad about a year and a half ago. It was the last time I was there. And they actually have in the squad room, they got one camera facing one way, one camera facing the other way. So they get both views. And then they got a backup camera. And the third camera isn't even in the room. It's secreted outside the room. So they really, like you said, if I'm about to stop organized crime murders, I ain't doing it on 3 cameras.
What if you're bringing in a guy that's already working for you, but you got to bring him in anyway, and you're in the room with him? How do usually you bring him in alone or with your partner, the only 2 guys who knows that he's working with you.
Sure.
How do you talk to him? He's not, you know what I'm saying? Like you're between a rock and a hard place. It's like the lack of trust of law enforcement officers is just out the window. And it's definitely hurting investigative techniques. It really went, like there's got to be checks and balances, which there always were. but it's out of control. It's really out of control.
Tom, you make such a good point, because if you bring your guy in who's working with you and there's another guy, usually the interview room and the cell are like right next to one another.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Take them to the bathroom and talk to them?
There's plenty of guys we've had to put handcuffs on that, we have to lock up to make it look good.
Right.
You worry about it, down the road in the DA's office. You're not going to let them out of the precinct. But when you get them in the room, you're talking, whispering, whatever. You can't. How are you going to do that now? You can't.
Makes the job a lot harder.
Do they run once you go in the room, or do you have to turn?
Yeah, they run. They're running, and it's a rule that they got to turn them on.
There might be a way to turn them off. I don't know. I did see
turning them off, and then you get something, and someone says, "Well, why ain't it on tape?"
Yeah, then you're facing charges. You're right.
It's even the same thing as the body worn video. I mean, there's got to be entire procedures of when you have to turn that on, because they also know that honest citizens that talking shit, you could tape that, and they may look pretty bad, which I've heard that's happened too. But that's not what that's not what it's intended for,
Well, it's the same thing when you're wired, right? I mean, once you turn out that wire on, you can't turn it off until you're finished, until the subject.
Organization laws on a wiretap. You know what I'm saying? There's certain rules you got to follow, but I don't know. I really don't know what's happening. It's not a good thing, that's for sure.
Making it much more harder on law enforcement.
Well, today, I mean, in New York anyway, you arrest them, and no matter what you arrest them for, they get out, right? They don't have to put up
the bail reform is letting, I mean, unless it's like a murder, the guy murdered some innocent senior citizen or something like that. It's right out. I mean, de Blasio just came out with a thing where they're going to pay guys who've committed gun crimes, fired shots or shot people. They're going to pay them $1,000 a month to not get involved in a shooting. It's as crazy as that sounds. It's insane. It's insane.
It's
like
totally
reverse extortion.
Guys, I just want to add. I'm going to play a little video. I'm sure everyone's going to know what this is from, and we can comment on it.
Last night may very well have been a payoff for getting into such trouble with the feds. As the reputed head of the crime commission and the godfather of the Gambino family, his appearance in court every day and the preoccupation with his defense were bad for business. Experts say his associates may very well have decided Big Paul was more trouble than he was worth.
We're working on the theory that there was internal strife within the family, and this may be a matter that is resolved just within that one family. We're working on the theory that possibly he was considered a liability in as much as the pressure of all the cases that are being brought against him and the other families made him a liability and not effective as a leader.
The violent death of Paul Castellano brings back to vivid life an old tradition in the history of this country: gangland executions. Shakespeare said of kings, "Uneasy lies the head that wears a crown." Of those who rise to the top of organized crime. They get there by violence, and often as not, they leave by violence. 1957, Albert Anastasia, the head of Murder Incorporated, murdered while he was having a haircut on West 59th Street. 1971, Joseph Colombo, head of the Colombo family, shot in Columbus Circle, 7 years in a coma, and then he died in 1978. 1972, Joey Gallo killed in Little Italy during dinner at Umberto's Clam House. 1979, Carmine Galante, boss of the Bonanno family, killed at a restaurant in Brooklyn. Yesterday, Paul Castellano, the head of the Gambino family, the largest of them all in this country, murdered outside a restaurant on East 46th Street. In the world of organized crime, the tradition is that murders do not go unavenged. Still, traditions have a way of changing, even in the Mafia.
Recent indictments and prosecutions of the mob leaders is causing an upheaval in the underworld. Yet efforts by the prosecutors to put the crime kingpins in jail are still subject to organized crime's way of doing things, their own kind of law, public murder.
The ability of the mob to kill people in cold blood and get away with it gives them the ability to terrorize other people.
They terrorize by killing their own in public. Deadly messages from organized crime to organized crime and the rest of society. The murder of Gambino crime family boss Paul Castellano yesterday, or the 1979 assassination of Cosa Nostra Don Carmine Galante. Unsolved, very public executions by an underworld that plays by their own rules and their own code of justice. The Castellano murder particularly brazen and defiant, since Castellano was gunned down a day before he was to resume standing trial for auto theft and murder. Organized crime had served up its own sentence. John Martin, does law enforcement bring these organized crime kingpins to justice, or is it organized crime taking care of its own in their own way?
Well, generally, I think we bring them to justice first. There have been a number of very successful organized crime prosecutions over the years. The rare event is an event like the death of Mr. Castellano, where somebody who's in the process is killed. It has happened before, but by and large, the system brings them to justice before there is retaliation.
In the wake of the Castellano murder, the U.S. Attorney Rudolph Giuliani says he's going ahead with the trials of 4 other mafia chieftains in order to keep the pressure on the mob.
We're fighting a war against a group that does not have unlimited reserves. And that's the best kind of war to be fighting. That's why I think there's a real prospect that at least the Mafia as an organization can be diminished or wiped out.
Well, according to Giuliani, it has come down to a war of attrition with the Mafia. The more Dons prosecuted by law enforcement and put behind bars will make it harder for the Mafia to renew itself and recruit soldiers to do the dirty work. Well, at least we hope so.
You know, it's funny, Joe. When I was a kid, I worked for the Daily News. My whole family worked there. And back then, it was, the News, the Post, the Times, the mob controlled it. And I used to drive Petey Galante, Carmine's brother, was an old man at the time. So he would just come in, he'd play little cards. And I had a route that would pass his house. He lived on 73rd Street between 13th and 14th Avenue. And they'd say, Tommy, drive Petey home. And I would just drive him home on the way to my route every night. So he'd play cards, have a cup of coffee, and I would drop him off.
That's unbelievable.
I don't know,
guys.
Did you ever see the tape, Joe? There's a tape that I remember seeing. I know I saw the tape of Baldo Amato and Cesar Bonaventure after the Galante murder, getting out of a car and being hugged by
Neil Della Croce.
Neil Della Croce in front of the Ravenite.
Ravenite, yeah.
It showed that it was a sanctioned murder because he was the boss of the Gambino family and they were Bonanno guys,
Yeah,
and
they had a lookout across the street, and they just was a permanent lookout, and they had no idea that the hit had taken place, and they were just lucky enough that they were there that day and filming that day. But when they saw, that, they knew something was up.
And Caesar didn't end up too good. And Jim Walden, who I used to work with in the U.S. Attorney's Office, put away Baldo. I think he's still in.
Yeah, Caesar and Baldo were buddies. I mean, they were Galante's guys, and then they got promised. Caesar got promised a captainship if he went against him, and he did. And it's funny because when Tony Mira brought the beefs against me, Caesar was one of the witnesses for him that I had stole $250,000 from the family in the drug deal. And at the sit down, Caesar was one of the witnesses for Tony Mira that he knew it. Yeah, so I had no love lost. I'm sorry.
Was it Joe Monk from the Post who killed Tony Mira in the garage?
It was his nephew, Joey Muke. Yeah.
Yeah. I knew him. I knew him from the newspaper business.
That was his own nephew. Yeah.
Guys, we're gonna go to a quick break. So if you have to get up and take a personal, this is the time to do it. Folks, if you're not subscribed to Police Off the Cuff, please go to our YouTube, hit subscribe. hit the button, give us a thumbs up. This is Police Off the Cuff After Hours, Real Crime Stories with Tommy Dades. And is it Joe Pistone or is it Donnie Brasco? I'm not sure who we got here. Anyway, Philly, we're going to go to a quick commercial right now. And Philly, you could do the first one.
Are you tired of the same old surroundings? Are you looking to relocate? Or are you just in need of a real estate agent in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina? Well, Carol Waters is your girl. Her and her husband, Rob Mahan, who is a retired member of the NYPD and the New York Fire Department, are both $1 million sales agents. Carol and her husband, Rob, can be reached at 914-261-6681. That's 914-261-6681. Or you could email Carol at carolwatersseldsmb@gmail.com. That's carolwatersseldsmb@gmail.com. One of our clients says she always goes the extra mile. Joe Murray, frequent guest on Police Off the Cuff, fantastic trial attorney, as well as a retired NYPD police officer. So if you ever find yourself in a jam and you're in need of legal counsel in the New York area, do you need a victim's advocate? Joe Murray's the man. He's not only experienced trial attorney, he's also retired from the NYPD. His website is jmurray-law.com. That's jmurray-law.com. His telephone number is 646-838-1702, 646-838-1702. Email Joe at joe@jmurray-law.com. He knows both sides of the fence.
Folks, Police Coffee is an officer-owned business dedicated to crafting the finest coffees and blends, and it's made to provide you with the freshest coffee available. Each batch is roasted fresh by people who know what it means to stay vigilant, and their specialty coffees do not waste one drop when flavor is concerned. Their coffee is some of the best you'll find, but also helps serve an important cause, giving back to our community. 50% of the profits goes towards helping family members of police officers who fell in the line of duty. To order coffee and related products from policecoffee.com, go to the website. There are over 7 types of coffee to choose from. 50% of the profits go to officers' families in need. For a 10% discount, use code OTC10. That's off the cuff 10. That's policecoffee.com. We have a new ad tonight. This is from it's a Pump 50. If you're looking for supplements, be sure to check out the products from firstdonutrition.com. As first responders, there are certain expectations in the performance on the job. We train hard and drill often to be able to perform at our best when duty calls. Whether it's hoofing over 100 pounds of gear or engaging in a spontaneous foot chase, we work out like our life depends on it, because it does. 2 New York City firemen created this supplement line with hand-picked products that will not pop positive on any drug test for first responders. Solid pre-workout products that will give you a good pump and a short-term strength boost that can help you power through your workout. Supplements to help with fat burning and weight loss, and post-workout formulas that support recovery. Go to firstdonutrition.com. Use code OFFTHECUFF to get 10% off your order. We're back, guys. Sorry, but
I want to get back into it with Joe, and it'll fit right in. He gave the Cops Off the Cuff a shout out a couple of times and let him know that me and Joe are going to be on the show. And that's Jimmy Calandria, the Bath Avenue story. I'm going to be with him on Sunday on his show at 4 p.m. talking about the book Mob Over Miami, and that's all about the Bonanno crime family. Right. And Jimmy was instrumental, and I arrested Jimmy. I was one of the guys that arrested Jimmy. And we've had a good relationship since the day he got arrested, and he was instrumental in helping putting a lot of people away, including Joe Anthony Spiro. So Sunday at 4 p.m., James Calandria, Bath Avenue story.
You know, Tommy, that's a sign of a great cop that can lock someone up and the guy can thank you. You know, I don't know how you did that, but
you know what, Joe, it's crazy. You know, I like Jimmy and me go. You know, from the day that he was on board, he I think that case alone was 7 homicides. And Anthony Spiro, Jim Walden was the deputy chief of the U.S. Attorney's Office. And Anthony Spiro was the top defendant on the indictment and at the Eastern District. And We indicted him and convicted him against Jerry Shargell on 3 murders that he ordered. And Jim had to just prove, and he did a great job at it. There were no first party statements or anything like that. We had to prove who Anthony Spiro was, convince the jury that he was the acting boss of the Bonanno family at the time of those murders. And, you know, that's the way it works. And he did order those murders, and he got convicted on all 3, and he died in prison. But Jimmy changed his life around, and that's what it's all about, is redemption. And I moved out of New York, so I walk into I go to get my 9/11 medication all the time. I'm on all these medications, right? So there's this one pork store that I go to, and then I just got a little.
Is it Satriel's?
No, it's not. I got a little board going there. I happen to peek in, and I look at another type of a restaurant. I won't even say what kind, and it looks good. So I see there's like a bunch of guys to my left sitting at the table, and I could just feel it. It's like the hair on my neck stands up, but I don't look or nothing. I walk in, I come out, and I'm just standing there waiting to finish eating what I'm eating to get back in my car and leave. And somebody yells out, "Tommy Dates." And I look, and the particular guy that called me, we had locked up, and he got 13 years. And there was a bunch of guys at that table, knew them all, and they told me, "Pull up a chair. Tommy saved my life. Tommy, a great guy. You always were respectful in the street. Please come here anytime you want. How's your partner, Mike Coletta? How's Jim Walden, the prosecutor? How's the judge?" I mean, I couldn't believe the way they were treating me, And I told them, I saw them today. I went to the drugstore. I went in there for something to eat. And I says, "I won't mention no names. I won't mention the name of the restaurant, but I'll let you say thank you for treating me with all the respect you did."
You said something there, Tommy, that I think is so your character. You didn't say I locked him up. You said we locked him up. You were always a team player. You never wanted to take credit. You as crazy as you are, and you are a little crazy. You're modest. You're modest about it, and I like that. Goes a long way with me. You never said I. You said we locked him up. And
you know what, Joe? I'll tell you something. Matty and Frankie were the first 2 agents I ever dealt with. And I know them now in excess of 32 years. And we're still in touch. They were at my new home having coffee and cake with me. And we still, all 3 of us, still keep in touch with Sammy. And I was a rookie detective. And they pretty much, when they were working, they had an office out of Staten Island. So they let me sign in out of the office. And I didn't ask no questions. You know what I mean? I knew if they wanted to tell me something, it was okay for them to tell me, but I didn't want to ask nothing. And they took me under their wing. I can't even explain to you, like, the way they schooled me, the things they taught me that stuck with me from my whole career. And I was one of the first state guys to ever sit down and talk to Sammy, even though I know Sammy from Tally's Bar since I'm a kid. But the first time and I've dealt with him in investigations on a homicide, but they brought me down there in Eastern District for 3 hours in MCC rather, underneath in Woodsack, and I got to see him. And I always asked them, I said, "Why did you, because you didn't work with anybody. Like, you were part of this 22 years. I mean, they had Bruce Mao and George Gabriel, but they were always together. They had their own style. They were both twins. Frankie DeChico loved them. Jimmy Brown Fiella loved them. They'd sit and have coffee and biscotti with them, and
3 coffee beans in the
They had 3 coffee beans in that Sambuca.
I always asked them, "Why the hell did you guys take a liking to me?" Like, I was a rookie, wet behind the ears detective. And from that point on, I've worked with some great FBI agents. I worked with some great DEA agents. One particular federal probation agent, Bob Anton, for 30-something years. I mean, there's a lot of animosity, the Yankees and the Mets and whatever. The best thing that I ever did was get involved and get deputized and learn the federal system as well as the state system. And make friends. And I still speak to every one of those guys to this day. And they became my dearest friends. And Matty and Frankie, I adore the ground they walk on. Frank and Matty walk in, they light up a room when they smile.
Yeah.
But what did they tell you? What the reason they took you under their wing? What was their response when you asked them?
They just loved you at first sight.
Because he made good gravy.
You're right. Those two guys were inseparable partners, and I mean, they were hell of agents. I mean, they were working, performing agents, and you're right. I it doesn't surprise me, Tommy, what you just said, because I've known those guys for a long time, and I know what's in their hearts and how they operated.
Matty told me to tell you. It just thought of this. He told me to tell you he still has the banana from your retirement party.
Whatever that means.
Guys, I just want to thank Duty Ron. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Joe.
After the first case, when the convictions came back and everything, and I guess the next day or a couple of days later, we had a dinner of everybody that was involved in the case, and they bought plastic bananas, and everybody got a plastic banana. The Bonanno family banana.
Donnie Brasco. He says it's fading a little. You got to renew.
Look at that. I just want to thank a couple. Duty Ron, thank you for the $10 super chat. Steve Colon, thank you so much for the $9.99 super chat. I wanted to make a little announcement, and I'm going to let Philly do it, and he could just put the picture on the.
We've been talking to somebody, that person on the screen, to possibly come on and do our show, and we got a commitment back from him, and we don't have an exact date yet, but we'll be interviewing Sammy Gravano very soon, sometime in the next few weeks, hopefully, and just to get a perspective. Obviously, we don't support any of his criminal activity, but we want to bring him on to just get an idea of the things that went on in his life with regard to law enforcement, and just to give a different perspective of, the life, organized crime, Cosa Nostra, as he always uses. And it should be a very interesting show. Hopefully we'll be getting Jimmy Calandri on to give his viewpoint too. And this is the future that we hoping comes together.
Joe, it's funny because when you do these podcasts, and I know you've been on hundreds of podcasts, but people will try to moralize, why are you having killers on? And I said, well, I was a sergeant in homicide. That's what I used to do for a living, and now I'm not allowed to talk to them because it's, they're telling stories to the public, but people get really crazy about that stuff.
What it is, first of all, the first and foremost thing when people say that, my answer is, the United States Justice Department, is the one that granted them the cooperation deal. Two, we would be, that's why Joe is Joe, because if all of us could do what he did, we wouldn't need guys to cooperate. But Joe would know better than anybody in this situation, unless you have somebody telling you. You can do your surveillances and your wiretaps and everything else. There's always pieces missing. I'll give Sammy a sentence, and Sammy will turn that sentence into 2 pages of details that I didn't know about. And there's no way I'd be privy to what he has to offer. So if you look at Sammy, Sammy was loved by the agent. Manny and Frankie and Sammy, Laura Ward, Judge Leo Glasser, the judge. There was a very good relationship between all of them. Sammy had 38 guys he put away, and the information and the intel that he opened up relative to organized crime, if you look at how many guys cooperated prior to 1990 and how many guys cooperated after 1990, Sammy opened up the floodgates. And without having sources, you're really not going to make the kind of cases that you have. And Sammy's he's a wealth of information, and you know what? Whatever the life that he believed in, it's, you know, some people may curse me on this podcast, but that's the life he chose. He really believed in it, just like we all believed in what we did for a living, and that's the way he lived his life. You know what I mean? And in the street, you know, in that life, it's kill or be killed. If you're told to kill, you got no choice, so you get killed. And a lot of guys, you know, don't realize, you know, especially the old timers, you know, you put them in jail, it's better than the way they were living on the outside. You know, listen, people could say whatever they want about Gotti, and Gotti played chess with Sammy, and Sammy checkmated him. But the one thing, he wasn't smart, he was stupid in a lot of ways, and he was arrogant in a lot of ways. The one thing I'll give him, and I'll show respect for him, is that for 10 years, you know, he went through a hell of a time, and he just would never tap out like in a cage fight. So for the balls that he had, I'll give him that credit. Not that Sammy don't have equal amount of balls. He fucked Sammy, and Sammy just caught his, you know, what he was going to do to him. And like I said, they played chess. Sammy checkmated him. But Gotti did have to go and kill Paul Castellano, you know, and then go home and get a good night's sleep. You got to have something between your legs, you know.
Well, you know, man, you talk about over 20 years ago. I met Michael Francis. You guys know who that is, right? And we were on a panel together with for the Major League Baseball, and you know, 20 some years later, I'm still friends with him. You know, he turned it around. He did his time.
But Joe, isn't that what it's all about? You know what I'm saying? I'm shitting it around.
You know, you know, we still stay in touch. I got him to do a few police conferences. He came, you know, and spoke at out in California. So, like you say, as long as, you know, as long as they did their time and they turned it around, that's that. You know,
I think the key too is that they don't fall back into the criminal, you know, the underworld again. If they can, you know, do something positive in their lives and not get involved in criminal activity, then there's something to be said about it. And I watched a podcast with Francis and you, Joe, and I was, you know, I was really taken back by the relationship. And then I saw that the relationship, like Tommy met those guys and, you know, they were okay with him and, you know, he could be friendly with them and sit down and have a cup of coffee or something to eat. And I really, you know, there's something to that, you know, it's amazing that you can have that relationship, you know, and the respect, there's a respect too.
Yeah.
You know, Joe, I think you said it on the last show because a lot of people, they're amazed at what you did and how you dealt with it from a psychological perspective, that you never wavered from you or Joe Pastone, a.k.a. Donnie Brasco, FBI agent. And you never lost sight of that. And when the case went down, even though you were very tight and friends with these guys, that some who got whacked because they vouched for you.
Yeah, because of the relationship, yeah.
Right. And some you put in prison. And you didn't, like just as you said, Sammy the Bull didn't lose a night's sleep after Paul Castellano was whacked. You also didn't lose any sleep over putting people away in this case.
No, and you know, and because look, everybody has a choice, and they made the choice. They made the choice to be wise guys. They made the choice to be gangsters. They were gangsters before I got there. You know, I never turned anybody or prodded anybody to be what they were.
Right.
And they knew the life they were in. And you talk about respect, Tommy. You know, guy, when you're with these guys every day, you see the good and the bad. You know, I mean, they're all killers. Who knows? You know, who knows how many hits Sonny Black had? I mean, but when he and I were together, I mean, I used to stay at his apartment upstairs from the Motion Lounge. Pardon?
He was a likable guy.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's crazy because if I didn't feel like going back uptown to my apartment, or, you know, I'd sleep on his couch. Now, at this point in time, he's a pretty powerful captain in the family, right? So I'd sleep on his couch. And in the morning, you know, he'd get up, he'd go across the street to the bakery and get us coffee, 2 coffees, and a hard roll with butter. And there's a guy that's running the family because he's one of the street bosses. And then we'd go up on his roof because he raised racing pigeons, and we just, you know, he'd educate me on racing pigeons.
I got to say something about the mutual respect that I saw over the years related to Tommy and a lot of different wise guys. Now, I have family in Brooklyn still, so I'm in Brooklyn from time to time. And, you know, I would run into guys that Tommy arrested, and they'd be like, yeah, he was a good guy. I had no hard feelings with him. I'm talking about real wise guys. There's a mutual respect. Same thing with Sammy. Guys would talk about Sammy and say, you know, even though he did what he did, he wasn't a bad guy. John put him in that position that he wound up doing what he did. So, and I just, you know, when Tommy would sit down with Billy Cthulhu, who he had in the precinct many times, locked him up, and before he was killed, there was almost like a father-son relationship between you and him, Tom. No, am I wrong?
There was a chemistry and a mutual respect, and I treated him like a gentleman. He knew the game, and he knew I was only doing my job. He never did nothing to me. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't like I would. He was a diabetic. I would give him his insulin. I would give his jewelry to his wife. I wouldn't voucher it. I'd let him order whatever lunch he want. He liked to smoke a cigar. You know what? That's something Matty and Frankie from day one always told me. You know, be nice, show respect. You know, they would go to Frankie DeChico if they needed to subpoena somebody for whatever. They just had to go to Frankie DeChico's club and say, Frankie, you know, we need to see Joe Blow. And Frankie would be like, no problem, we'll be here tomorrow. And he was there tomorrow. They go see Jimmy Brown Fiella, who would chase everybody else away who tried to talk to him. And he'd have his wife bring them over black coffee in the morning. They talk. They're not doing anything wrong. It's just building up a rapport. Sammy once said that he told his guys, I don't want you talking to Jocorico or Spiro. And the reason why he really said that was because Matty and Frankie were so genuinely likable and polite that he was afraid they may start to like them and they, you know, end up working for them. So Sammy was pretty sharp. He saw what, you know, they were about, and he forbid his guys from saying a word to either one of them. So you know what? And that's not the only reason you're being nice. You know, being respectful to somebody who's respectful to you, even though you're locking them up, it's bad enough. You may be putting them away for 10, 20, 30 years. He didn't do nothing to me. I'm doing my job, you know. So if he wants to be nice to me, you can only get something out of it and not get something out of it. Guys that I'm retired and guys that were in the life that aren't anymore, that I do have a relationship with today, like Joe said with Michael Francesi, you know, they're likable guys, and there's attributes about them that, you know, we have in common, even politics, sports. Me and Sammy, boxing and politics. We don't talk about gangster stuff. You know what I mean? It's past already. So our relationship is just genuine. He makes fun of me. I make fun of him. It's, you know, he's my friend. I consider him
growing up around it, Tom. I can remember as a kid, old time wise guys, and they would call them the bulls. The cops would drive by and somebody would say something, because I worked like in a Sala Maria. There was a lot of wise guys around, and old time wise guy said, leave them alone. They're doing their job. You know, you do your job, let them do their job. And that was really like the mutual respect that they had. They didn't, you know, they knew it was part of, they chose the life. And there's law enforcement that kept guys in line in the life and had to put guys away. And I even worked with a guy from Public Morals that, go around raid social clubs, a sergeant. And he said that, we would go in there, bust up the tables and stuff. And, we would tell the guy in charge, pick 5 guys to come with us. They had to make 5 collars that night. So if there were 15 guys in the club, you went last time, come this time. And they had this mutual respect. And then they would take some of the money that was on the tables and buy food. And, there was just, I don't know if it's like that today anymore, but there was just a mutual respect.
Those kind of arrests are, there's different reasons you make those kind of, we had, when Ralph Doles was killed, the cop, we were doing one search warrant after another, locking up 30, 25 guys, vouching 50, 60, 70,000 card games. Normally, do I really give a shit about the card games? Be honest, no. Back, they killed a cop, so we were trying to hit everybody in the pocket and just retaliate for what they did. But, those kind of crimes, you know what I'm saying? Like, I really had the bookmaking and stuff like that. I really had no interest in any of that stuff. If you weren't killing people or dealing, 20 kilos of something or hurting an innocent guy, then I really, my heart wasn't really into it unless there was a reason for us to do it,
Well, I know there were guys, around that, they were petty thieves, maybe, for the lack of a better term, but, they had families and stuff. And I never wrote up anything. I knew they were, they were boosting this, boosting that, but they weren't hurting anybody, they weren't going out on big time scores. And I mean, I never put anything on paper about those guys because, sure, they didn't work. They were petty thieves, but I knew that they weren't out robbing guys with pistolas. They were just boosting maybe some stuff from the airport, just to make a little dough here and there. And I don't know if I mentioned this last time we were on, guys, but you talk. I had a good relationship with Sonny. I had a good relationship with Lefty too, although he was a big pain in the arse. I mean, one time Sonny Black, he and I are having dinner, and he said, he tells me about the life, and and he said, I'd like you to make me a promise that if I get clipped, or go to jail, you look out for my family and stuff. I mean, that's the kind of relationship we had. So and you talk about a guy being a gangster, and he knew he was going to get clipped. He knew he got the call to go to a sit down, and he goes in the Motion Lounge, gives his money, his diamond ring, his keys, except the keys to his car, and tells the bartender, I just got called to a sit down and I'm probably not coming back. Calls his lady friend and tells her the same thing. I mean, that's a gangster.
As Sandra would say, that's La Cosa Nostra.
That's La Cosa Nostra. Yes, exactly.
So that's what they always said. They never said Mafia. They always said La Cosa Nostra. But then, he tells his he tells his lady friend some other stuff. So after everything goes down, we have trials. They find Sonny's body. New York FBI gets a call, and this lady says, I'd like to talk to Donnie Brasco. What about? Well, it's personal. All right. So they get all the information, and they call me and they say, hey, do you know this? I said, yeah, I know who she is, and well, she wants to talk to you. Well, let's, so they pick her up, they bring her to Washington, and we go out and she says, I just want to relay this to you. And she tells me that story about Sonny. And she says to him that, or he says to her, if anything ever happens to me, I want you to get in touch with Donnie and tell him that I don't hold anything against him. I love the guy.
Wow.
He never did anything to make us do. He never did anything to make us do something that we wouldn't do. He was just better than we were. So
checkmate.
Yeah.
That's pretty. That's pretty amazing, Joe.
That's,
I mean, Donnie.
I had heard that when they did kill him, that they actually didn't. The first shot they hit him with, he went down the stairs and he actually told them, make that shot count.
Yeah, hit me again and make it good.
Yep.
Yeah.
What balls that guy had, huh?
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean,
That's La Cosa Nostra.
That's Cosa Nostra.
I'd have
look,
been
guys,
on a plane. They called me on a plane.
I just want to, in the last few minutes, if we could just, and I know that there's not enough time for this, Tommy, but I wanted to see if you would touch upon this a little bit.
I'm getting bored of them.
Wait. I got to say a few things about Tommy's career. His career, 84 Police Academy, 1986 Narcotics Division as an undercover and then an investigator. 89 goes into the Detective Bureau, starts investigating homicides. 97 to Intel, where they reestablished the Organized Crime Investigative Unit. 98 he's on the boxing team doing all of this. 2001, 9/11, obviously, Ground Zero, terrorist attack. He responded down there. And then 2003, he starts, along with other people, Joe Ponzi, Mike Vecchione from the DA's office. He starts the mob cop investigation where those two scumbags sold their shields and started killing people. I mean, it had happened previously, but that's when he started investigating it. Anyway, 2004, Tommy retires from the NYPD, goes to work for the Brooklyn DA's office. He continues his career, and he continues to investigate the mob cops. 2006, they're convicted on 79 RICO counts, right, Tom? 79, 8 homicides they're convicted of. They're implicated in 14. So now, Tom, take over and tell us what else I missed.
You got it all, Philly.
Tommy,
just so you guys know, this is Tommy Dades' book. It's called Friends of the Family by Tommy Dades and Michael Vecchione, and it talks about the case against the Mafia cops, Steve Caracappa and Louis Ippolito. The NYPD really didn't do a good job of prosecuting them.
Story where it shows that story right there is where interagency cooperation got that. Without it, it would have never happened. Frank Drew, Timmy Moran from the DEA. There was some FBI agents involved, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Brooklyn DA's office. It would the interagency cooperation and openness with that was really what, in most of the cases that I worked on, without one or the other, it wouldn't have happened. So to all the guys that I worked with, they know what I'm talking about from the federal side. Thank you for the opportunities that you gave me, and we had a great time, and we knocked the hell out of all of them.
Tommy, I just wanted to make a comment about that in regards to the NYPD not doing a good job on investigating their own. Two of the biggest corruption cases were the Mafia cops, obviously, and Michael Dowd. And other agencies locked these guys up because the NYPD Internal Affairs.
You had Joe Hall in a 7-5, and in the 7-5 case, who was a detective and was on to him right away. And Joe's the head of special narcotics right now. I know him forever, and Joe was on to them. They had their number. As far as
but they didn't kill the Michael Dowd case, Tommy. Nobody was murdered. I mean, they were horrible criminals. They were thieves. They were drug dealers. But these guys were doing contract murders. Ippolito and Caracappa. Come on, that's horrible.
Hey, Tommy, let me ask you a question. How did the mob recruit these guys?
What happened was Nicky Santoro was Eppolito's was a cousin to Eppolito, and
Was that right?
Kaplan meets him in prison in around 1979. And before he takes care of Bert. Bert's around Christy Tick and then gets passed over to Queso. And you know, he tells Santoro, he says, I got a cousin that's a cop. When we get out, anything you need, you let me know. And there was one murder that Bert used the mob cops in that Queso didn't know about at the time. But when he went to Queso and wanted to offer their, use to kill people, Queso was like, what do I need them for? If they're turning on their own, they're going to turn on me. I don't trust them and I don't need them. But when they tried to kill Queso, he was so desperate for information that he gave it a shot with them and eventually used them constantly through Bert. And there was only one time that they ever saw each other. Vicamuso and Queso, when they dropped off Jimmy Heidel's body, was with Bert Kaplan and the mob cops pulled up. But that's the only time they actually saw each other. The intermediate was Bert always, as far as passing along information. I think one time his partner, who did testify too, Tommy Galpine, had one payoff for them for a homicide, information related to a homicide. But they compromised bugs, wires, informants. They even gave the address. They tried to kill Charlie Rose.
Yeah.
They wanted to kill, and I love Charlie Rose, was a great guy.
Tell us who Charlie Rose was, Tommy.
He was a U.S. attorney, and they got the information from the mob cops and Lucchese guys, Queso's guys, Georgie Zapola, I think it was, George Conti, Joey Testa. They sat on the wrong Charlie Rose, the commentator, and they never shot him. But they would have given up my address. If they knew where you were, Joe, they would have told them where you were. They didn't care. There was like no lines drawn with them whatsoever. So you're going to give up a federal prosecutor's address to get killed? You know what I mean? So they sat on Sammy 3 times too, but they couldn't get to Sam. Too many people were around them all the time.
Were they doing other stuff before that? I mean,
Nobody, you know what? Before 1979, we knew that Ippolito's uncle and cousin, Jimmy, were both made guys, Nino Gaggi and Roy DeMeo killed the both of them on the Bell Parkway. And other than him and his father he wasn't a made guy, but his father was affiliated with the Gambino crime family. So he had family related to the great Gambino crime family. He always was acting like a gangster. Where Caracappa was the low-key guy. We know that they met in the robbery squad in 1979. That's all we know how they met. They didn't grow up together. We don't know of any OC ties that Caracappa had. And the biggest question we always had was, how did two guys that really don't know each other that well start talking about doing murders together? I mean, a lot of them, and passing off. I found in the folders where Caracappa actually runs the wrong Nicky Guido's name, and 2 weeks later, the wrong Nicky Guido is dead. He uses his code. It's his name, runs it. He gives it to Kaplan. Kaplan gives it to Gas Pipe. Gas Pipe gives it to his guys. And 2 weeks later, the wrong guy is killed. And these guys had no remorse. And
Tell him how old the kid was and what day he was killed, Tom. That's important.
He was killed this Christmas Day Christmas Day. I think it was 1980. If I'm not mistaken, 1986 Christmas Day. Yes, 1986 Christmas Day.
18-year-old kid.
He jumped in front of his uncle. He just got a new car. He was showing his uncle the car. And he jumped in front of his uncle, and Joey Testa was the shooter. And Joey Testa kills him. And the family even started to wonder, like, did he have anything to do with organized crime? But he had nothing to do. He was a totally innocent kid. So they did
Completely
a lot of damage. And Betty Heidel, I mean, she didn't trust the FBI. She didn't trust the NYPD. And she's the one called me and was screaming at me on the phone. And you know, I need somebody to do something. And I understood her frustration. I was very polite to her. But I'm like, this case is over my head. You know what I mean? I said, I'll try to see what I could do. And when I went to the U.S. Attorney's office, I was shocked when they handed me the folders, you know, the boxes. And I rolled them on a hand truck into the Brooklyn DA's office. And then between the DEA in Vegas and then they were time barred, but when we made the drug buy, it opened it up again and went back to the Eastern District. And, you know, they did a great job prosecuting them. 79 predicate acts on a RICO, 79 convictions, and end of story. Good night, Charles.
You know, Tommy, one thing I think it's interesting to the folks listening is that why did the NYPD not want to go forward with this case?
I don't know whether they did or didn't want to go forward with it. I don't know if they knew about it. I really don't know. You know, I didn't pay attention. You know, I heard rumors. I remember going to Dunkin' Donuts in the 6'8" squad, getting coffee. It was my turn to get coffee for everybody. And on the post, I see that picture you just showed up of both of them when Queso gives the whole story on them. And I was like, no way is this shit true. So I don't pay, not that picture, the picture in the squad, that picture. That's the front page of the post. And I didn't really pay much attention to it. You know, it had nothing to do with me. So when I got the case, I don't know whether I don't know what the NYPD. I had nothing to show whether they tried or didn't try. I didn't ask them. I didn't call internal affairs while I was doing the investigation. I left them out. They had nothing to do with it. It didn't inform them of anything. They were retired guys. I was very careful with Vegas because I was told to be a little leery of some of the Metro cops out there because a couple of radio cars were seen by Ippolito's house. Even when I did search warrants where they killed Jimmy Heidel, I didn't call crime scene. It was something that I just wanted to keep very, whoever needed to know knew, whoever didn't need to know didn't need to know. So I called Bellevue's forensic recovery team. I didn't even use our own people. So I kept it very much away from the NYPD. So I can't say they didn't have nothing to do with it. And by the time I investigated, it was so old, whoever was running the police department at the time, it was just old news. And if, you know, nobody was getting access to Queso, but if you read his 302s relative to the police, it was on the money. And Kaplan corroborated everything he ever said. You know,
I think politics got involved, Tommy, because if you look at it from, let's say, the PC or somebody high up in the NYPD, the feds looked at it, said there was nothing there, and they didn't want the bad press.
I couldn't do anything with it because they ripped up Queso's cooperation agreement. So there was nothing they could do with it. So now you don't have Queso. They tried to flip Kaplan. He wouldn't flip. So you're really at a dead end. If the feds can't do it with federal laws, there's no way the state could have done it. You know what I mean? And by the time the state knew about it, they were retired already because Queso don't come in till 93.
Right.
So there's really not much the state kind of could have done at that point. I just went and picked the stuff up because I felt bad for Betty Heidel. And it's just the relationships I had. I was friends with the agent that locked up Kaplan and Galpine. Joe Ponzi, you know, his knowledge. Mike Vecchione, who was the chief of the Rackets Bureau. Then I had the Eastern District on my side. I had the New York and the Vegas office of the DEA on my side. Then they brought in FBI. So, I mean, they brought in the cavalry.
Tommy, real quick, what did Betty Heidel tell you? Because that's important. Just get that little point out. That's important.
You know, how the fuck could you let this happen to my son and nobody's doing nothing about it? He was a bad guy, but he still was my son. Somebody better do something about the guys that killed him because people are saying that, you know, this one killed him, that one killed him. I don't know where he's buried. And Queso purposely buried the body because Jimmy asked Queso to let them find the body. because he had a $100,000 life insurance policy. So they purposely buried the body, so it took Betty a long time to eventually collect that money. But
didn't she see Ippolito on television?
Yes, but she didn't call me till years later.
Okay.
Had nothing to do. She knew, but she doesn't call me till years later for other reasons that she calls me. But Judge Deary awarded all the family members. The only people that didn't collect money was the Heidel family. Judge Deary awarded family members of the victims.
Tommy, just so you know, we froze up for a second, so they may have missed about a minute.
All the family members $5 million because there was something to do with Ippolito and passing along information allegedly to Rosario Gambino, and he beat it at the trial room. The FBI raided the place, found his fingerprints on it, and he beat it at the trial room. And Judge Deary felt that had they fired him at that time, none of those murders would have taken place, and he awarded the family $5 million on a lawsuit.
How long were they retired before they got arrested?
One retired in 90, one retired in 91, and they got arrested. The investigation started in 03. I think we locked them up sometime at the end of 04, and they were convicted in 06.
You know, guys, we're at an hour and 20 minutes right now, and I know Joe Pastone has a certain bedtime.
So, quick question for Joe Pastone. I watched your podcast with Franzese, and you talked about Creasy's restaurant. Where was that? In Manhattan?
No,
that sounds familiar, Joe?
Yeah, it was in couple blocks away from the Motion Lounge on God, I can't think of the street. Motion Lounge was on Graham and Withers.
Okay. So it was down that area. Okay, because I'm a I like restaurants. I just never heard of it.
It's not there anymore.
Okay.
You know, all of this stuff is so fascinating, and I mean, an hour and 20 minutes went by like it was nothing. But I don't want to go any further. Really, we'll have to meet again at some other time. But Joe, as usual,
we'll have to get together with Maddie and.
Definitely, Joe. You just name it and I'll arrange it 100%. It was great seeing you, and I'm glad you're doing well. You look great.
You know, Joe, I had talked to your friend Bob Starkman, and I said, you know, I want to come visit you guys and take you out to dinner, but I don't want him putting a hood over my head, turning me around 3 or 4 times, and then throwing me in the back of a car because I'm not allowed to know where you are.
Yeah, well. Let me see.
We'll get it together.
Starkman's about 1,800 miles away from where we are right now. So,
all right.
I won't. Okay, we won't tell where Starkman is then, because someone will figure it out. You know.
Yeah, we'll have to get together, Tommy, and have lunch with.
100%, that'd be great. Maddie and Frankie, they're watching. They would love that. They would love it. They look so good. They walk in. I go, you guys don't age.
God bless.
The last time I saw him was maybe a couple of years ago, and you're right, Matty. He looks like he looked, you know, back in the late 70s, you know, early 80s.
And Frankie used to wear. Frankie's an ex-Marine. I used to be able to comb my hair in his shoes every time you saw him. You know.
Yeah.
Two great guys. Good, super guys.
You know, Joe. Everyone wants to know, how many pairs of sunglasses do you own?
I got a lot.
I think you should get an endorsement from some of these sunglass companies, you know?
Should, right? Yeah.
Joe Murray, the great attorney. Thank you for the 1999 Super Chat. He says, please do another show on this. It's so fascinating.
It really is.
We got the Encyclopedia of Organized Crime, Tommy Dades, and then we got the Babe Ruth of Undercover, Joe Pastone.
Listen,
Joe, you even got me confused.
Leading up to this show, we said we were going to have 2 superstars on. Let me spit that out. We were going to have 2 superstars of law enforcement. You look at their resume, you look at their history, what they've done. We only scratched the surface, and I think that we met that high bar that these guys were, and I tip my hat to both of them. Being in law enforcement and just being on the podcast with you guys was a tremendous pleasure. And thank you very much.
Well,
Yeah, Joe, I hope
Having us.
that 3 times isn't a charm and that we can have you on again. You know, I'll have to have the encyclopedia of OC, Tommy Dades will have to come back on again, though, you know?
Anytime.
That's great. So, folks, I'm Bill Cannon, and with Phil Grimaldi, Tommy Dades, and Joe Pastone, this has been Police Off the Cuff After Hours, real crime stories. What's that, Tom?
I was telling Joe, I'll talk to him soon. I'll be in touch.
Okay, great.
All right, good. Sounds
And
good.
folks, thank you so much for listening. Good night.
Good
Stay
night.
safe, everybody.
God bless.